Good morning or good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. The topic is efficient and infinitely scalable Microsoft Office 365 backup. We're going to talk today about 100% OpEx, multi-tier, multi-location, infinitely scalable enterprise class backup with data immutability. That's a mouthful. We're going to talk more about that and find out what that means. I see people are still joining us. We're going to give it a minute, let everybody get settled. So again, welcome. Thank you for being here, and we'll get started in just a minute. All right. It's 1 minute past on my clock. I think that's good. I see people are still coming in, and yet it's time. Let's do it. My name is Greg Newman. I'm VP Marketing here at Zadara, and I'm very pleased to be joined by two experts for today's webinar. Corinne Bassett, technologist in Product Strategy Group at Veeam. Hi, Corinne.
Hi, happy to be here.
Thank you. And Steve Costigan, Senior Director of International Solutions Architects at Zadara. Hi, Steve.
Hi, Greg.
Well, let's jump into it. Today's agenda, what are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about Office 365 a bit. I suppose everybody who's on this webinar is familiar with Office 365. And maybe something you're not as familiar with is why backup of Office 365 matters or should matter to you. And that has to do with Microsoft's shared responsibility model, which we're going to take a look at in a few slides. And we're going to talk a little about a backup solution involving Veeam and Zadara that we think you'll find very interesting, because it'll allow you to do more with Office 365 backup than perhaps you thought possible. And then we'll take a few minutes to look also at backup built for Veeam cloud solution providers, MSPs and VCSPs, and how that works and how that can be a very convenient solution. All right, and of course, no webinar will be complete without a little Q&A at the end. Those of you that may have questions throughout this, please do use the chat box and the questions panel in your GoToWebinar interface to ask your questions. We will perhaps be able to answer those questions during the course of the webinar. If we don't get to them during the course of the webinar, when we take a pause on a few slides to answer questions, we will do that at the end. And if we don't get to your question, or we don't get to all the questions, we'll do our best to send answers out to everybody afterward. Thank you very much. That is the agenda and the conclusion of all of the preparatory remarks. So let's dive in. I think we all know Office 365 has gotten quite popular with users all over the globe, 200 million at last count. Remote workers are really driving a lot of this lately. As we all know, we have an environment right now where we have more and more people working remotely than ever before. This is obviously therefore a significant application and a set of applications, and it's only growing. And so paying attention to backup of Office 365 is very important. Unfortunately, Corinne, and this is what we were talking about the other day, because Veeam did a study about this, 74% of businesses do not protect their Office 365 data.
Yeah, when we put that poll out there and checked the industry to see who was actually protecting this data, we were kind of shocked at these numbers. And a lot of people just don't understand that they're supposed to protect the data, that's what they're responsible for when it comes to the Office 365 environment. You think software as a service, it's always available, everything else is taken care of. It's the most hands-off as a service platform out there, but there are still some things that you are responsible for, which is the backup. And this is for many reasons, whether you're looking at accidental deletion and the confusion in retention policy. There are gaps in retention from the Office 365 environment for how much archived data that they save for you by default. Not to mention internal security threats, whether it's getting hit by ransomware internally or maybe an employee that decides they're going to go out in a very special way. And again, the external threats, rogue applications, all these mobile devices that we're bringing into our network now. Bring your own device is huge. Companies offer guest Wi-Fi for their employees just so they can utilize all of these mobile devices, which makes our day-to-day communications so much better. And not to mention legal compliance. A lot of industries require you to keep data for a longer retention period than is kept by Microsoft by default. And not to mention the burden of moving from like a hybrid environment deployment to maybe just cloud only. This can kind of help put a little bit of ease of mind into the backup before you do those types of processes.
Yep, yep. These are all very real threats. But how often do they happen? Well, you've investigated that as well, haven't you?
Well, we not only investigated how often it happened, but how it happened. So the biggest problem is user error, accidental deletion. And I think we're seeing an increase in this number because of the collaborative platform like SharePoint Online. Not only can you have a shared information source for internal users, but you have access to give to outside users, which means there's more people accessing that data, which, to be fair, we're all going to be responsible for deleting the wrong file sometime in our life. So the more people accessing that data, the more likely we are to lose something that was actually critical or was there for a reason that that person didn't know. So I expect user error to probably expand to be one of the most, or number one problems or reasons why we might lose data in the coming future.
Yep. And this is what we promised. There is a shared responsibility model that Microsoft puts out, and I don't know that everybody's familiar with exactly how that works. So we thought we'd include a copy of it here. And Corinne, I know we've talked about this before. You have a few important points you want people to understand about this.
Yeah, the shared responsibility model is a model for all cloud platforms offered by Microsoft Office 365. In different categories, they protect different levels of the infrastructure. When it comes to software as a service, they're responsible for geo-redundancy of your data, making sure that the underlying hardware for your data doesn't die, fault zones, and update tolerance. But when it comes to the data and the integrity of that data itself, that's more in the hands of the end user. So if you have a compromised set of credentials that logs into your system and either deletes, corrupts, moves your data in a way that is unexpected, that's more so on the end user, meaning that you're responsible for being able to recover that data. In addition to like deleted users. So if you have a deleted user in your environment, you are responsible for keeping an archive of that data for any type of legal reasons.
In fact, we have a chart that describes in more detail exactly what types of data are kept for how long under Microsoft's retention policies.
I think this is one of the biggest misconceptions among customers when they think that there's a recycling bin for their deleted data. Yes, there is a retention threshold for how long your data is being saved, and that's what they call a soft delete before it enters into a hard delete cycle where you're no longer able to recover that data. But most times that you realize that you need to recover data is around the 140 days mark or older, which is outside of most retention policies for any deleted data within Microsoft Office 365, whether it's your email, your OneDrive, or even your SharePoint sites. Your data is usually gone where you're not able to retrieve that back.
That's an important point. I think it's, I'm glad that you highlight it in this chart. It's important for people to realize that by the time you know you need your data, it may be too late. And of course, we have an alternative, don't we? We have a better way of doing this, and that is to put a more comprehensive backup solution in place so that all of those types of data can be protected from day one, and for as long as you like that data to be protected. Now, this is the chart that I think allows us to kick off. a discussion of exactly what Veeam and Zadara do offer. And so that's what the next section of our presentation will be about. I just want to take a moment to recognize that as we can see, people who may have some, excuse me, some misconceptions about Microsoft's policies. They may think they're better protected than they are. I think we've shown that, in fact, it is your responsibility to protect your data. And Microsoft, which runs a wonderful service in Office 365, only goes so far. So let's take a look at Veeam Backup for Office 365. This is a quick summary slide. Corinne, I think Backup for Office 365 is just a terrific product in its simplicity and its power. Talk to us a little bit about it, please.
So Office 365, or Veeam Backup for Office 365 just helps fill in that retention gap. And I think we can address the question in chat about using archive for the same result. Well, I think it comes to a bigger question. Do you want to see your data protected on the same platform, or do you want an archive of your data in another place like standard require? So backup isn't just about keeping redundant copies of your data on the same platform, but also having a copy of that data somewhere else for proper storing of your data. So
Good point.
archiving is nice to have, but archiving is also meant to be able to export that data, not necessarily restore that data back to the original location either. And it just doesn't have as robust of an option platform to get your data where you want it when you need it there. And it doesn't help as often with, say, deleted users. That data is gone. Just to
Exactly.
address that one.
Thank you. That was a terrific, terrific answer. I'm glad we had clarified that point. I'm sure a lot of people were thinking about it. Whoop.
Whoop.
All right, let's talk a little bit about, where are we? There we go. Let's talk a little bit about Veeam Backup for Office 365. Tell us, please, Corinne. Give us the highlights, as they say.
So not only do we help fill those retention gaps, but we offer over 25 different types of restore options so that you're able to, again, get that data where you want it, but we also restore data in the format that you expected. It's not a raw data file that you're getting onto your on-premise or cloud environment. You're getting the data in a format that is going to be able to restore back to the original location, export files in a way that your applications can recognize, not just plain text. And all of these help you meet your compliance, especially for things like e-discovery. Those advanced and robust search options allow e-discovery to be a breeze so that you can get back to your main job as fast as you can without worrying about these legal compliances because they're already covered for you.
Exactly. You know, the way you describe it, it brings up an important point I think we should make here, which is, you know, frequently we talk about backup and we forget to append the more important word there, which is it's backup and recovery. It's the recovery bit that matters, right? We only back up so that we can recover if needed. And the options that you provide users for recovery, including in the case of e-discovery, for instance, those are that's the value I think that really Veeam provides, the most tangible value right there. It's about how you recover. With Zadara and Veeam, we have an ability to extend all of the goodness of Veeam and to provide storage options and recovery options that are not available using other storage methods. Steve Kotkin, I'd like to bring you in, and I'd like to talk about Zadara and Veeam together as a single system to protect Office 365, Exchange, OneDrive, SharePoint, all of those wonderful applications in perhaps an environment, as we know, more and more people are using Office 365 in hybrid configurations all over. We have some on-prem stuff like Exchange, and the other applications, of course, are being run in the cloud.
Yeah, I think the key aspects to think about here is that every organization is different. Service providers may want to use object storage because it's more scalable in conjunction with Veeam. Enterprises may want to use block storage for that environment for Office 365 backup, and they may want to offer additional capabilities from a service provider. And really what we want to talk about in terms of the methods and how to achieve a 3-2-1 backup solution in conjunction with Veeam, really is where we're going to drill into these scenarios as we go through this presentation. But it's really key that organizations understand that they've got choice with Zadara to be able to back up Office 365 either on premises or via a service provider.
Excellent. That leads to a quick look at a Office 365 backup solution checklist. IDC put this out, and when we look at this list, obviously it's fairly comprehensive. We're talking about the ability to back up, as you described, Steve, from different locations and 2 different locations, to have different restore options, to give people that kind of flexibility and choice is key, because not everybody's environment is the same, is it?
No, and I think, Karine, this is an area where Veeam have put a lot of effort into understanding the requirements around Office 365 backup, and I think the key is the breadth of features that Veeam offers here. That flexibility of choice in terms of recovery, where you want to recover to, how you want to recover. And I think the key part in terms of the innovation, I suppose, is what both organizations bring to this. Obviously, we're bringing that capability in terms of object storage and block storage capabilities to Office 365 backup. But I think all of the power from Veeam in terms of that e-discovery and choice, I think is really, really key in how we bring these 2 together. The next element, obviously, in terms of scale, means that we're able to scale the object storage, which helps Veeam to scale in terms of certainly service providers handle lots and lots of larger environments to offer a true multi-tenancy capability. Karine, obviously, the integration that you have, do you want to talk a little bit more in terms of how that integration works from an Office 365 perspective from a backup side of things?
Yeah, our integration, we make sure that we're compatible with both your cloud and your hybrid types of environment and your on-premise. So you don't have to worry about where your data is at to be able to protect all of that. And sending it all to like the S3 storage, which you offer, is an infinitely expandable capacity without having to worry about scaling out your hard drives or your underlying infrastructure, which today's environment, we mainly use, I would say, still email, which is a very static type of data growth. As in SharePoint or OneDrive, I expect with the higher adoption rate of those platforms, data to just explode, where we have terabytes of data being uploaded to SharePoint for collaborative work sites, and OneDrive so that you can move your data from one computer to another without having to carry that external hard drive anymore. Just these types of data platforms are going to make the S3 storage, I think, invaluable in the long game.
Exactly. Good point. Well, let's take a look at what we've mapped out. Steve, you put this together, a simple and complete backup for Office 365 with different scenarios and different ways of going about it to provide different levels of capability, if you will. You want to walk us through this map, and I know that we're going to talk about you're going to talk about the slide in each one of these in separate slides.
Yeah, I think it's back to that previous slide. The final point there was the breadth of service, and this ability to offer multiple different options. There's the standard option as we see it, which is backing up to block or to object on premises or via a cloud service provider, and then an enhanced option there where maybe we can combine the Zadara block storage, using that with our snapshot and replication capability. Obviously, there's some caveats around that in terms of ensuring the JetBlue database that Veeam uses is synchronized correctly. Additionally, the ability of using Zadara's multi-zone HA, where we can provide a object storage with dual replicas in 2 different data centers. So again, mainly for, I would say that the larger environments, certainly for service providers wanting to offer a comprehensive solution. And then I would say, the complete and immutability, this ability to provide a backup using VBO, and then using Veeam VBR to provide a comprehensive backup of the VBO data and pushing that into an immutable object storage, which we're one of the few providers that can do that. So if we drive into that side of things and we look at where the first model takes us to, very simply, if we take Office 365 or Exchange SharePoint on premises and we utilize the VBO backup, then we can simply deploy object storage or even block storage on premises on a 100% OpEx model. And this is the key differentiation I'd say that Zadara brings into this, is that the Veeam Office 365 backup is available under VOL licensing or VCSP licensing. That means it's an OpEx model. Zadara brings its object storage and its block storage as an as an OpEx model. So that means as an end-to-end solution, regardless of whether you're on premises or whether you're a cloud service provider, we're able to deliver this as a 100% OpEx capability. So if you are a VCSP, you're able to offer obviously infinite scale object storage as an option for organizations looking to back up their Office 365 data. And let's be clear of this, most organizations that have decided to utilize Office 365, they've done that because they want somebody else to manage that problem for them. Nobody wants to manage Exchange anymore, or very few organizations do. Same with SharePoint. So people are going to be looking towards a service provider to be able to offer them a valid backup and recovery for their Office 365 environment. And this is really where Veeam is the leader in this space. Us providing the object storage capability on premises via the VCSP enables us to offer a different level of solution as I say, a 100% OpEx model. So if we take the next model where we're taking a Zadara block repository, presenting that to Office 365 backup. If we're able to quiesce that block storage, we can utilize our snapshot capabilities and our backup to objects, which means that we can now offer a backup of that block volume, synchronize that into object storage, and that enables us to now offer the first stage of what we'll call a 3-2-1 backup solution. So if we look at the primary copy, it's running in Office 365 or Exchange and SharePoint. The first copy of, or second copy of that is running in the block storage, and then the third copy is running into object storage via our snapshot technology. If we look at the next stage of deployment and capabilities, we're taking an extension of what we did in the previous slide, but now we're adopting this as an object storage model. Obviously, object storage is a different type of storage. So therefore, you've got to look at protecting that and doing things in a slightly different way. The way Zadara does that is that we have this capability of multi-zone high availability, which means that we can provide a object storage full object ring in data center 1 and a full object ring in data center 2. and whatever is copied into the data center is immediately synchronously replicated into the second data center. So again, this provides that 3-2-1 backup solution where you're protecting the data with 3 copies. The final solution really is, I would say, a very much the more comprehensive solution where you're providing the best of all options. You've got your on-site copy from Office 365, Exchange or SharePoint. You're using VBO to back that up onto block storage. You're then using Veeam backup and recovery to back up the VBO virtual machine or physical appliance, depending on how things are set up. And then utilizing Cloud Connect to then push a further copy out to the service provider, where the service provider is going to be backing that up onto a scale-up backup repository, and with the option of immutable storage. So this really is the belt and braces capability, because you're able to offer an expanded 3-2-1 option, but also with an air gap. This utilization of Cloud Connect creates that air gap, and then when we start to look at bad actors, ransomware, etc., even if the on-premises is compromised in some way, then the Cloud Connect capability offsite means that you've got a protection and therefore a recovery method. So in terms of the way that looks and feels, if you're a VCSP, you should be looking to provide this capability. If you're not a VCSP and you're an enterprise or a channel partner and you want to maximize the use of this capability, the backup capabilities provided by the experts, i.e. a VCSP being the expert in terms of backup, means that it's going to be easier from a restore perspective. Remember, most people are deploying Office 365 because they want simplicity. You want your backup and your restore capabilities to also be simple. And this is really why we're starting to see this growth in terms of VCSPs offering Office 365 backup and delivering that extra layer of protection.
Steve, mentioning the word simplicity gives me a thought. As you went through those diagrams and the 4 scenarios, I couldn't help but notice that in many ways, they're very simple. I mean, there's a lot of capability behind the diagrams you've prepared, and yet I think in the deployment, it's very straightforward. Maybe the word simple is unfair. How about straightforward?
Yeah, I think what we're trying to do is again, as I mentioned right at the beginning, it's about choice, and it's about giving people the option to deploy exactly the same capabilities on premises, using our multi-tier capabilities, but also utilizing VCSPs and providing that cloud tier capability. If somebody wants the ultimate belt and braces and they need long-term retention, then this combination of multi-location, multi-tier capabilities is relatively simple to deploy. And it's not just the technology is being simple, it's the billing model, because everything is OpEx. You've not got to worry about providing backup hardware and then refreshing that hardware as technology changes and your needs change. And really, this is where the alignment between Veeam and Zadara in terms of this hybrid cloud model and multi-cloud model, as both having this completely end-to-end OpEx capabilities, is really a key differentiator in the market.
It is, and that's a perfect segue into the next slide, which is directed at VCSPs. So not only do we believe there's a compelling argument to go host your backups at a VCSP, but if you are a VCSP, as Steve, you were saying, you get an opportunity to give your customers some additional choices and to do it in a way that fits your business model nicely. There's a few points in the slide we haven't talked about yet. It's not just, of course, about the technology that we offer, but also, as you can see, it may be the case that you'd like to avoid, say, egress fees, which is a a question we hear frequently when we talk to service providers and customers.
Yeah, it's a key one that we do see, because obviously, if you're backing up Office 365 natively straight out, then that's coming into the VCSP natively. There's no egress charges for that. Obviously, if you're backing that up into the cloud provider, then doing a restore, there's egress costs from the cloud provider in doing that. So this model that we have in terms of the on-premises capability, again, what we're trying to do is simplify the model and make it simple and easy to cost for the service provider as well. They've not got to try and figure out what their egress costs are going to be if a customer asks for a restore.
Exactly. And this notion of simplicity, again, let's extend that a bit. It's true that you can, in fact, offer Office 365 backup, and that may be the extent of your offer. I know we're going to actually look at a wonderful example of that in a moment, one of our customers. But in fact, if you choose to go beyond that, if Office 365 is your first offering, with Zadara, you can, of course, power a backup as a service, a broader backup as a service, or disaster recovery as a service solution. So really extend if you're a CSP and you're doing some business planning and you're asking yourself, what do my customers need or want today and in the future? Think a little bit about where you might go beyond Office 365, and backup as a service and DR as a service more broadly seem to be the natural next steps, and of course powered by Veeam and Zadara makes for a seamless growth path.
Yeah, I think there's an important part of that we see in reality, Greg. We see a lot of new partners, VCSPs, who are looking to offer new services. If we look at historically, a lot of the VCSPs have backed up their own internal hosting business, and that's the way that they've operated. And really, what we're encouraging jointly here with Veeam is to say, hey, look beyond your borders, look beyond your own data center. Look at the customers who are still operating on premises, or maybe have part of their infrastructure with your hosting business, and maybe part of it outside, like with Office 365. And extend the reach out to offer additional capabilities, be the trusted partner for the customer. And you may start with Office 365, then you may decide, hey, look, we'll offer Cloud Connect on top of that capability. We'll offer block and object from Zadara, provide that immutability capability around VBR. And then maybe looking further down the line, other services around anti-ransomware, maybe looking at Veeam Data Labs, etc., as a mechanism to offer additional services that jointly, with Zadara's unique capability to create new storage array within 120 seconds and present that to a test and dev environment or a recovery environment, really enables a service provider to offer a myriad of different services moving forward.
Yeah, exactly. And you touched on something important. We'll talk about it in a little bit, but we will have additional webinars with Veeam talking about ransomware, talking about NAS backup, and all of the wonderful functionality that Veeam brings, and together with Zadara can help a service provider or an end user really implement a full backup solution. So looking forward to those. But before we get to that, it's important to talk a little bit about how this Office 365 backup can look and can work for a service provider. Virtual DCS is a terrific example, Steve, especially because of the way they've really jumped in and created a terrific self-service portal for Office 365.
Yeah, I think Virtual DCS, they're based in Yorkshire in England. They are a Veeam Gold partner, a VCSP Gold partner. They already offer Cloud Connect and Office 365. But the really unique thing about them is that they've completely embraced the whole Veeam ecosystem. They've developed this dedicated offering, Cloud Cover 365 Backup, where they've built this incredibly, I wouldn't say complex, but fully functional web portal that enables users to restore capability. Every user can recover. They don't even have to involve centralized IT if they don't want to. They're a channel partner, so they're channel focused. So they're offering this capability into what I would call traditional VARs. Those people who will go and sell you 10, who'll go and offer you various different services around that. But they're offering this capability of actually almost a zero cost entry into offering an Office 365 backup solution, because they're hosting that, they're protecting that, they're providing the portal services. So it's really easy for them to offer additional capabilities. And the other nice thing is the way that they've integrated into Office 365 with multi-factor authentication support. They don't ask for credentials. They enable the customer to log in and take that. So they completely offload a large amount of the configuration off to Microsoft themselves as well for authentication. So it's a great model that they built. It's a great portal that they built. And as we move forward with them, these are a great example of an organization that wants to offer more and is going to look more and more in terms of the other capabilities that is available to them as we build the relationship out in terms of Veeam, Zadara, Virtual DCS, because this also enables their resellers to offer Zadara on premises as well. So it's very, very all-encompassing. It's a great partnership moving forward.
It's an interesting example as well of how, thanks to the rise of broadband and networking and internet, increased specialization has really become the truth here. It's an as-a-service world now, and for your business, whatever it might be, the idea is to focus on what you're best at. The idea is to focus on your customers and bring in those ecosystem partners that can help you deliver the right solution. And we believe our role, together with Veeam, is and you can see it here with Virtual DCS and what they've done, is simply to provide the technology and the solutions that will allow you to give your customers the choices, like we talked about.
It's the next utility, Greg. When you think about it, you look at electricity and water and gas. You just expect to turn them on and they're there.
Yeah.
We're getting to that same point about your IT and your recovery of your IT. And we're going to talk more in terms of ransomware with the session we've got with Dave Russell on LinkedIn Live tomorrow, and more in our ransomware webinar on some of the key facts. 16.2 days now average recovery from a ransomware attack. So having a specialist service provider really, really helps.
Yeah, that's a really good point, right? There's some real consequences. Let's take a look as we begin to wrap things up a bit. Let's take a look at what we've been talking about. We, of course, know Corinne has shown us that you are, in fact, responsible for protecting your Microsoft Office 365 data, and all of the reasons why that's important, and where Microsoft has its responsibility and where that responsibility ends. And we can see that thanks to Steve's presentation, there are ways in which you can utilize Veeam and Zadara to create a solution that is not only comprehensive and offers 3-2-1 backup, which is a Veeam best practice, but does it in a 100% OpEx solution. So we hope that what you've seen makes good sense in terms of the technology itself, but also in terms of the business model and the approach, and that you'll give serious consideration to your backup needs and to the kind of environment that you'd like to have in place in order to ensure that you can meet your recovery objectives and your data protection objectives. If you're a service provider, we hope that you'll take a look at the multi-tenancy and the OpEx model and everything we've done here and that Veeam has done in order to create a solution that really is a wonderful fit for a service provider. So we've managed in about 40 minutes. Am I right here? Yeah, looks like about 40 minutes to get through a fairly complex topic and quite a few details. We hope that this has all made good sense, but we know you may have questions about what we've talked about today. We encourage you to put those questions into the questions panel. And of course, if you have an interest in learning more, we have information available online. You'll see some of those resources listed right here. And we hope that if that looks interesting to you, you'll click through. A recording of this webinar will be made available to you. And therefore, if you don't want to take this down right now, if you don't want to take a snapshot of the screen, you will get this as a follow-up to this webinar. And then we do have some upcoming webinars, as we mentioned. We have ransomware protection coming up on May 19th. We're looking forward to that. That's a hot topic. I think everybody would agree. And NAS backup, which is a surprisingly hot topic and an important one, will be coming up on June 2nd. We hope you can join us for those. Because we have a few minutes, let's take some questions. What do you think, group? Corinne and Steve, you ready to take a few questions and talk?
We have multiple questions already, and we started to answer them. Let's look at the rest.
I think there's some great questions in the chat here for us. The question about Microsoft charging for copying Office 365 data. Office 365 data platform doesn't work the same way as object storage as where you have those egress charges. So downloading your data from Office 365 doesn't come at any additional cost. It's a different pricing platform. They basically charge you based on user and access to application.
Nice.
Protecting Office 365 against ransomware. Now, I think this is a broader question as to how to protect your environment from ransomware. Definitely there's going to be security protocols that you can put in place, and you can make your environment so secure that you can't even access it. But we have to let something through. So this opens us up to ransomware. Your only protection really against ransomware is things like using that immutability tier or having multiple copies of your data, having different platforms for your data where you access through different credential sets or different protocols. In reality, those are the only true ways to help protect yourself against ransomware.
It's a good point.
Yeah, I think the ransomware piece, we have to be mindful that, the protection against ransomware, no one system is going to protect you completely from ransomware, because it's part of the whole security onion. It's not just about firewalls, it's not just about intrusion detection, it's about people, because people are the biggest threat, phishing attacks, etc. So if people have got access to the data and people succumb to the phishing attacks, your data is going to become compromised. The key then is, if you are subject to a ransomware attack, can you recover the data, and how quickly can you recover it? And I think that's the key value here in terms of Veeam and Zadara, and especially when you look at that all-encompassing capability of using VBO with Zadara and using VBR with our immutability capability. That gives you the belt and braces from a end-to-end recovery option, but it's not going to stop you, suffering a ransomware attack in the first place. You've got to educate your users, you've got to lock down your RDP ports, you've got to patch your systems correctly to, reduce those risks.
I couldn't agree more, Steve. I would say that is the most powerful message that can be offered by a VCSP, is they're going to see ransomware more times than you'll probably ever see as an end user in your lifetime. Having a VCSP can help you prepare for those worst case types of scenarios. They are the person on your side in case of disaster, because our admins wear many hats anymore. They're not just backup admins or SharePoint admins. They're spread as many places as the company will let them be.
Yeah, exactly. What a great example of increased specialization. Again, you're exactly right, Corinne. VCSPs are going to be steeped in ransomware and all of the ways in which those types of attacks are happening. So great to be able to rely on an expert like that. I agree. There's an interesting question that came in. I'll throw it out to the group here. Does VBO enable end users to perform their own restore and recovery without needing central IT?
It can be configured that way, Kareem. Again, I suppose this is where I'm going to draw into what somebody like Virtual DCS have done, is that's how they built their portal, where the end user can log in and recover their data directly without needing support from central IT. So I think what they've done demonstrates it can be done. How you set that up, obviously, I think that's where some of their value add and their IP comes from in developing that portal that enables it.
The REST APIs are there. It's just a factor of coding it in what your VCSP provides.
Excellent. And there's a question about VBO licensing and how that works. Talk to us a little bit, Corinne, about the licensing model for VBO.
The licensing model is based on a per user, meaning if your user has a OneDrive, email, SharePoint, for backing up all of those together would be one license. So they can have as much SharePoint data as they want. As for cost of storage and how the OpEx model works, it's going to work a little differently depending on the VCSP and what services that they provide additional.
Very good. There's another question that came in around ransomware. Obviously, this is a hot topic. It's near and dear to people's hearts for obvious reasons. We can certainly talk a little bit more about ransomware here. I will say, please do join us for our ransomware protection webinar on May 19th, where we're going to get a chance to dive into this topic in much greater detail than we can do here. But let's, this is important. Let's address these ransomware questions because
Greg, also on that one, obviously the Veeam Live event tomorrow with myself and Dave Russell.
Oh, that's right. Thanks, Steve. You will be talking about ransomware quite a bit. That'll be tomorrow. And please, everybody, do tune in to that. That's a LinkedIn Live event, so please get into LinkedIn and the Veeam channel. Check it out. With regard to ransomware, there's a question about secondary copies. If the secondary copy is replicated, with the replication also replicate the encryption from the ransomware. Oh, this is an interesting point, right? This gets to the notion of immutable data. I think the question means, would the secondary copy also be corrupted? And of course,
I think that's a much bigger question. It's all going to depend on your attention when you notice that you're encrypted, because those backups could be encrypted for months. And if you're not protected past those months, then you're not going to be able to restore. So often you don't realize your backups have been encrypted until you need to restore that data. So definitely thinking about those immutable options is going to be your best safeguard against having that data when you need it in case you do get hit by ransomware.
Hey,
yes,
Corinne,
yeah.
I know you're also you're a cat lover, so I'm going to throw in a cat piece here, Schrodinger's cat and Schrodinger's backup here.
So right.
So if you never test the recovery, how do you know whether the backup works? So
I love that.
There's a key piece here that this is not about the backup. Everybody gets hung up about backup times and how long is my backup going to take. No, focus on your restore. How long is your restore going to take, and can you actually develop a strategy where your restore is going to be there when you need it?
There's
That's
actually
true.
something that I like to call the backup zip code. It's 32110. 3 copies of your data, at least 2 different media types, 1 offsite, and then 1 either air-gapped or immutable. And the 0 means that there's 0 errors when you test your backups. So
Ooh, I like it.
getting that complete look at it is what I like to call the backup zip code.
That's very clever. I like that. That's fun. There's a question here about the Veeam and Zadara relationship. Will I need Veeam Cloud Connect in order to take advantage of Veeam plus Zadara? Steve, let's talk about all the different ways somebody can take advantage of Veeam and Zadara together, please.
So if you're a VCSP, then you have the ability to offer Cloud Connect as part of your services. So if you're licensing and you're providing a backup as a service to an on-premise customer, then Cloud Connect comes included in that license cost. If you're a perpetual user and you're running on premises and you want to use Cloud Connect, then you have the ability to connect via the Cloud Connect portal to any VCSP that is offering a Cloud Connect service. Yes, there's a charge from the VCSP for offering that capability. Corinne, is there anything I've missed in terms of that model?
No, it's pretty much what you want to use, you can use, and it depends on how in depth that you want to go with the copies of your data for what you select, like which products.
Maybe I'm reading too much into this question, but I think there's an implication here that, you know, where is the Zadara storage located and housed? You know, what are the options there? Is this merely a cloud service? Is this
whatever you want it to be? So, you know, most of our partners, service provider partners, are storing, you know, they have their own Zadara cloud capability inside their own data centers or their co-located data centers. We offer exactly the same capability on premises to enterprise customers, channel partners, you know, VCSPs. And of course, we have our cloud connected capabilities that enables people who are, you know, maybe want to back up AWS VMC with Veeam. They can back up to our cloud connected environments that way. So it doesn't matter where you are, doesn't matter how you operate. We have a perfect alignment model with Veeam.
Exactly. We are aligned 100%.
I think it kind of confuses some people when we don't have those types of limitations on where you can store your data, because it's kind of a unicorn in the market. You mean I can store my data anywhere? And that's what we bring to the, I think, together.
Thanks. Yes, exactly. And so, you know, we promised you choices. I think you can see that you, in fact, do have choices. When you look at Veeam and Zadara together, you really get a total solution for backup and recovery, including your storage options. We do encourage you to take a closer look, and one of the ways you can do that is to visit the website you see here listed at zadara.com and our Veeam page. You can, in fact, sign up for a free trial. Veeam offers a 30-day free trial of its Office 365 backup. We encourage you to get that, download it, and use it. And in conjunction with that, come on over to Zadara and see about getting a free trial of our solution and our storage. If you are a service provider, please let us know. We have some special programs for service providers so that you can try us out, not just in the cloud, which is our typical free trial, but perhaps if you're interested in your own data center. So we encourage you to come learn more, poke around, ring us up. Our experts will be happy to talk in more detail than perhaps we're able to get into on an individual basis here in this webinar. So thank you very much. I know that we've gotten close to the time. We'd like to respect everybody's time, and it looks like we are close to that hour. So let's wrap it up. I want to start by saying thank you very much to Corinne and to Steve. We really appreciate your expertise today. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
And me. Thanks, Corinne.
All right, everybody. Until the next one, which will be coming up in a couple of weeks. Thank you very much for joining us today, and look forward to talking to you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.